สวัสดีครับ I'm Point from ค้นพบ First of all, I do apologize for disappearing again for a few weeks. As you saw in my previous post on Facebook, I was preparing for my first workshop about mental health, which I called Mental Fitness 101. I was given the opportunity to host this workshop by a very wonderful and very nice lady at Fleshman Hilliard, Thailand, a branding and PR company. So I'm very grateful to them for giving me a chance and an opportunity to do this, despite knowing that it was my first time hosting a workshop like this. And I must admit it was very difficult and challenging for me at times, even during the event, especially the first part, because I've never done anything like this before. So I do hope that we achieved our objectives, and I do believe that we all learned so much from the experience, especially me, perhaps. Anyways, today I want to talk about embracing life. What does it mean to embrace life? To embrace all the good and the bad, the positives and the negatives, the challenges, the hurdles, the difficulties, the negativity that we, as I'm sure we all can relate to, that we often experience from time to time. What does it mean to embrace that? To really accept that as part of the taste of life. Let me begin by proposing or talking about it this way. Wouldn't you agree with me that it is our natural instinct to try to escape or to try to suppress or to try to ignore or force our minds to stop feeling something negative? Say when you are feeling tired, or when you're feeling disappointed, or you're feeling heartbroken, or you're feeling fear, or you're feeling negative for whatever reason, our natural instinct is to want to run away from that, right? We want to almost as if force ourselves to get out of that rut, that rabbit hole. We want to always maintain feeling good and positive. But have you ever noticed that when we go about life like that, if we really pay attention and self-reflect and contemplate and look at it honestly, it doesn't really work, because we don't genuinely feel better by trying to force ourselves directly like that. Say if you're feeling negative, you're in a bad mood, you don't really feel better by trying to force yourself to feel good. You may sort of superficially lie to yourself and think that, okay, it's a bit better now, but deep down you know that it's not a good place to be. The thing I want to propose here in today's video is, in one sense, the art of life is to embrace it, to accept whatever is in the here and now, to be able to cope with and tolerate uncertainty, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing what that other person is thinking about us, not knowing how the situation is going to unfold. The ability to sit with, to tolerate, to cope with, and just observe in a non-judgmental way uncertainty, negativity, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our bodily sensations such as pain, without being repelled by it or drawn to it. Watch it mindfully, in other words, as if you have a small gap, which, for lack of a better term, we could call some safe space from which you see what's happening in your field of experience that you call negative emotions. But at the same time, you have the awareness to just look at it as an experience that arises. In other words, you're not identified with it. You realize that those thoughts are just that, they're just thoughts. You realize that your feelings are not facts. And yes, you may be feeling negative, or you may be feeling in a bad mood, sad, depressed perhaps, heartbroken perhaps, or anything, or let down or disappointed in yourself or in somebody else perhaps, you know and you acknowledge that feeling, but you don't give in to the narrative or the story that your mind is trying to convince you to believe about yourself or about the world. So it is just as if you are a scientist watching your own emotions and feelings and thoughts and sensations arise. And you notice in the way that I'm describing this, that the key here is not to react, it's non-reactivity. The key lies in non-reactivity. The ability to just sit with and watch and not try to force it, not try to force your mind to stop feeling negative, for example. Just watch, just let it be. I think that's what it means to cope. To truly cope, to truly accept something. Again, it does not mean to accept the narrative or the story that your mind is trying to get you to believe, such as, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I'm not talented enough, oh, I'll never make it, oh, I'll never be successful. Not to accept that narrative, right? Because when you accept that narrative, you're still reacting to your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions. Just sit with it, just watch it. Just approach it with a sense of curiosity. Because if you will notice, we cannot force our mind directly like that. And at the same time, if we try to run away from those emotions, those feelings, right? Or if we try to suppress it, it won't work. And you will unwittingly teach yourself to fear those emotions, those thoughts, and that situation more than before. If you try to run away from a negative emotion or negative feeling or negative experience, yes, you might feel some sense of relief in a short run, but overall, in the long run, you perhaps are more likely going to unwittingly train yourself to fear that situation. So in other words, to embrace life means to confront your own experience of it. Confront your own experience of it mindfully, objectively, non-judgmentally. Not needing to react to it. Okay, you feel bad because you don't know what's going to happen at the situation with work next week. If you're going to get promoted or if you're going to get punished for whatever reason. You don't know what your friend, your colleague, or your wife, or your husband, or your girlfriend, or your boyfriend, or that person who you secretly admire, you don't know what they think about you. Okay, accept that for now. Embrace that for now. Can you just accept the fact that you don't know and that you don't need to know? And in that paradoxical approach to life lies a lot of wisdom. It is empowering and liberating. In one sense, you are taking back power, you are taking back control, because you're not letting some outside external circumstance dictate how you should feel. But you see, this comes from the foundation of having a skill set, which we could call a coping skill set. A coping skill. A skill to confront, to sit with, to tolerate, to cope with, to observe whatever it is you are experiencing right now, which you could call bad, that you call disliking, that you could find disturbing, that you could consider as something sad or depressing, a negative emotion, a negative feeling, a negative thought. Can you just allow it to be without needing to control it? And once we become better at doing this, we will start to realize that, wait a minute, we are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings. We are not our emotions. They are just experiences that rise and stay for a while and then they change forms or they cease to exist. They only ever have the ability to control us or to haunt us or to make us feel bad the moment we believe them to be true. And so if you train this coping skill, keep training, right? Be okay with not knowing. Be okay with not having the answer. Be okay with uncertainty. Be okay with just sitting with your negative feelings and emotions. Then you start to realize that your emotions don't have power over you until you allow it to. So that's what it means to take back control and take back power. And I want to add that coping, in this sense, is not arguing. We're not trying to argue with our own thoughts, right? Let's say you have a bad thought that says, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or I'll never find love, or I'll never be successful in my work, or I'll never be successful in my business, I'll never be financially stable, I'll never have good relationships, life is terrible, blah, 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 right? And you might know logically that you shouldn't think that way. What coping means, what embracing means, it means to not have a need to argue with those thoughts. Because when you try to argue with your thoughts, if you'll notice, you only agitate your mind more. I'll give you an example. If I tell you right now to not think of a blue elephant, whatever you do, don't think of a blue elephant, right? If you try to force yourself to stop thinking of a blue elephant, you'll notice that you can't do it. You're only going to think of a blue elephant more. So therefore, the point of the message here is you can't force your mind directly like that, right? You have to work with your mind. And if you want to work with your mind in a more wise way, then it means accepting that you can never really force your mind to feel anything that you want on command. However, you can practice non-reactivity. And in that skill of not reacting to your own thoughts and emotions and feelings, you realize that you actually have power and control. Because when the mind is settled down, you can actually work with it in a much more effective and empowered way. You start to realize this if you train yourself through practice to just embrace life, which means to embrace your experience in the present moment, whether it may be positive or negative, right? And from that place, once you're no longer reacting to your mind, once you're no longer reacting to your emotions, once you're no longer trying to argue with yourself in your head, which only serves to agitate your mind more, then from that place, you recognize that you are more powerful than your thoughts and emotions and feelings. You are the one who is truly in control here. You see that? Your brain starts to recognize that thoughts, emotions, feelings cannot harm you or cannot kill you until you give it power to do so by believing that they can harm you and hurt you and do damage to you. So the more we're able to do that, the more we begin to realize that our experiences are always created from within, from the way in which we interpret our experiences, from the way in which we process our experiences, and from the way in which we give meaning to our experiences. And if you can teach yourself to cope with and tolerate and accept and embrace any experience in the present moment, then you can then teach yourself to select a more helpful, empowering, powerful way of looking at the experience, way of thinking about yourself and the world around you, way of processing and interpreting your experiences. That is always tied to the realization that you actually co-create, or you you create your own experiences of reality. And if you're able to embrace that, you will start to really become empowered, because now you have the ability to create the experience in a way that suits you and serves you and serves the people around you, rather than ones that torment you, that haunt you, that traumatize you, that cause you to be gripped by fear and trapped in fear. This is much easier said than done, I admit, and of course I'm nowhere near being a master of it. But the more I think about this, the more I self-reflect on this. Say, the more I self-reflect on the nature of my suffering, the nature of my worries, anxieties, or when I feel discomfort in not having an answer to something that I'm seeking an answer for, I realize that I've only worked myself up and caused myself to suffer for no apparent reason. Because I'm giving my power away by reacting to those thoughts and emotions and feelings, reacting to outside external circumstances, right? So I wanted to leave that as food for thought in today's video. To truly embrace life is to accept it non-judgmentally, to accept it and watch it mindfully, to not react to it, which requires an ability to cope with it, which we can all train and develop and cultivate the skill set. It is mindfulness, in other words, being mindful of your experience as it is, without needing to directly control it or force it or try to change it, right? Because doing so only serves to agitate the mind more, only serves to make you have a bigger emotional reaction, right? And once you see that your mind settles down, you realize that you're in control here. Nothing can harm you until you believe it can. You have much more power than outside circumstances. In other words, you realize that life isn't really about what happens to you, but how you choose to respond, how you choose to make meaning out of it. But that must come from a place of being able to embrace and accept all of which life has to offer, the taste of it, both good and bad. And the more we begin to do this practice, the more fun, per se, we begin to have in life. I hope this video was valuable. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. สวัสดีครับ